Fort George is simply one of the largest and most extraordinary fortifications in the whole of Europe. It was built after the Battle of Culloden to ensure that the Highland clans could never again cause a rebellion. It was to be the base for a huge contingent of the British Army. I first visited Fort George many years ago, and on that visit and each subsequent visit I'm simply blown away by the sheer size, the sheer massiveness of the fortifications. The stonework, the battlements and the fortifications are on such a huge scale that it got me thinking, where did all this stone come from? This is where it all came from. This is the story of the stone that built Fort George. Here I am out Stravaigin again on the north bank of Munlochy Bay. It's here in Munlochy Bay that the quarry that supplied all that stone is situated. And for more than 10 years, from 1740 onwards, sandstone blocks from the quarry were loaded onto boats in this harbour and taken across the Murray Firth to a vast building project on a spit of land near Ardesseir. But we're getting ahead of ourselves a bit here, so let's go back and find out why Fort George came about in the first place. There was an earlier Fort George, and it was built on the site of the castle that now sits on top of the hill behind me. And that castle is a much later addition. Now, the earlier castle was built in 1727 by General Wade in an attempt to constrain the Highlanders after the 1715 rebellion. However, after only 2 days of concerted siege in February 1746, the army of Bonnie Prince Charlie managed to subdue the castle and a few days later demolished it to deny the government its use. After Culloden, it was obvious that a much more formidable fortress was going to be needed, something capable of subduing the Highlands and of housing up to 2,000 men. The initial idea was to site a fort here at Cromwell's Tower, where Cromwell had had a fort some time previously. But that idea was shelved because it could still be attacked fairly easily. What they needed was a bomb-proof site. Which takes us back to Fort George and of course back to the quarry. In the first edition of the Ordnance Survey map, the main components of the harbour are well shown. The narrow entrance, a large holding area and the narrow finger where the boats were loaded at the end of the track leading from the quarry. The stone block lining the harbour walls still remains to be seen on the east side of the holding basin, but has disappeared on the west. Now, the basin is approximately 25 metres square, with a 5 by 25 metre entrance from Munlochy Bay. The loading bay, the inner one, is similarly about 5 by 25 metres long. The channel down which stone from the quarry was dragged, presumably on some sort of rail system, can still be clearly seen. And the quarry behind it remains an arena of crags, vertical surfaces, huge elm trees and a solitary goat, which I haven't actually seen today. All in all, it's an awesome place, a dangerous place, so best not to explore near the cliffs. The late Mr. Matheson of Bennettsfield, which is the farm just behind the quarry, was the proprietor of this land, and he let the quarry to the government, or to the undertaker employed by the government to quarry stone for the new Fort George. Now, although there was plenty of unskilled labour available locally to work the quarry, and in fact to build Fort George, the master craftsmen and many of the other skills had to be brought in from the lowland towns, England, or even from the continent. The stone for Fort George was supplied by contract arranged through the master mason in North Britain to the Board of Ordnance, and his name was William Adam. And there was also plenty of timber on the estates round about, of the notable Whig families at Balnagowan, Och and Fowles. It could also be floated down the Spey from Badenoch, so there was no lack of materials. Other materials such as nails, iron, lead, tools, even pumps could be supplied by the merchants of Inverness, and they were happy to do so because it was a good steady income. The materials were supplied from Inverness down the Murray Firth by sloop or barges. And so all the materials and the stone that was quarried arrived at the site at Fort George and construction began. Well, that's my visit to this wonderful quarry over. It's given me a tremendous insight into what must have gone on here 175 years ago, and the amount of stone, the amount of work that went on to build Fort George. So I hope you've enjoyed this little donder out, and perhaps you'll join me for the next time we have an adventure. So thanks for joining me. Bye for now. Bye.